You're staring at a list of PTZ cameras, scrolling past the specs, wondering if any of them will actually save you the hassle of setting up a whole crew for a live stream or a small venue shoot. The fear of dropping a decent amount of cash on a piece of gear that ends up gathering dust or worse, that you can't get to work without a PhD in networking is real. You want something that just clicks, that can be left to run on its own while you focus on the talent, the lighting, or the content itself. And you also want to know whether the price tag matches what you'll actually get out of it. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So, let's talk about the BirdDog P110. It's marketed as a compact, full NDI PTZ camera that can handle indoor stadiums or large spaces, with a 10x optical zoom and a 12x digital boost, all while delivering 1080p at up to 60 frames per second. What that actually means in a real-world setup is that you can mount this thing on a ceiling or a tripod, point it at a basketball court, a conference hall, or a stage, and get a clean, low-latency video feed that works straight into any NDI-compatible production workflow. No extra capture cards, no HDMI to USB converters, just plug the Ethernet cable in and you're live. First off, ease of use. The first thing I looked for when testing PTZ cameras was how much menu diving it required before you could actually get a shot. The P110's on-screen menu is lean. You get a simple overlay that shows zoom level, focus mode, and a handful of preset buttons. Setting up a preset is as easy as hitting store while you're looking at the spot you want, then assigning it to one of the 5 buttons on the remote. In practice, that means if you're covering a sports practice, you can pre-program a view of the goal, a mid-court angle, and a bench view, then switch between them with a single click. No need to scroll through submenus while the action is happening. Autofocus on the P110 feels confident enough for most indoor scenarios. It uses a contrast detect system that locks onto subjects quickly, and it stays locked even as people move across the frame. I tried it during a rehearsal where the speaker was walking from one side of a hall to the other, and the focus never slipped. The downside is that in very low-light situations, think a dimly lit conference room with only a few spotlights, the contrast detect method can hunt a bit before it settles. If you routinely shoot in near-dark environments, you might want to add a bit more lighting or consider a camera with dedicated low-light IR support. Stabilization isn't a big selling point for PTZ units because they're typically mounted on a stable platform, but the P110's internal lens mechanics are smooth enough that a quick pan doesn't produce the jitter you sometimes see with cheaper units. The 10x optical zoom is genuinely optical, not just a digital crop, so you get clean detail when you zoom into a specific athlete or presenter. The extra 12x digital zoom can be handy for a quick close-up, but because it's purely software-based, you'll notice softness if you push it past 2x or 3x beyond the optical limit. In short, rely on the optical zoom for primary framing, and treat the digital zoom as a convenience tool rather than a replacement for a higher resolution sensor. Low-light performance is tied to the sensor's 1080p 60 capability. The camera does a respectable job up to about 30 lux, which covers most well-lit indoor venues. Below that, the image gets grainier, and the auto iris can struggle to keep exposure steady. If your production involves evening performances with deep shadows, you may need supplemental lighting or a camera that supports a larger sensor and better high ISO handling. Battery confidence isn't a concern here because the P110 is powered over Ethernet, PoE. That's a real advantage. You run a single cable for both power and video, eliminating the need for a separate battery pack or external power brick. In a venue where you have a reliable network switch, you can leave the camera running for days without worrying about recharging. The flip side is that you're dependent on a stable PoE source. If your switch goes down, the camera goes dark. A small UPS for the switch can solve that, but it's something to keep in mind for critical live events. Now, who should actually buy this thing? If you're a small to medium production house that does regular indoor sports, school assemblies, or corporate town halls, the P110 hits a sweet spot. Its NDI support means you can feed it directly into a live streaming software like vMix or Wirecast without any extra hardware, keeping your signal chain simple and your latency low. The 10x optical zoom gives you enough reach to capture details from the far side of a gym without moving the camera. The preset system and remote control make it friendly for operators who aren't camera technicians, so you could even hand it over to a volunteer or a junior crew.